So I'm really happy to introduce these 7 seasons on behalf of the consortium. So this first session of 10 minutes will be on the why. Why NoAW makes sense, why this kind of project makes sense for the future. So that's why it's called Preparing the Future. I thank all my colleagues from the consortium who contributed to this presentation, and I'm really happy to present it. So you can go to the next slide, please. So as you all know, we are in a linear and fossil-based system today where we extract a lot of fossil resources to produce, let's say, consumer goods that we consume most of the time rather quickly, and then it generates waste. So on one side, on the two opposite sides of this linear system, we estimate that we extract around 15 gigatons of fossil resources per year under the form of natural gas, oil, and coal mostly. And this is used for, let's say, about 78% for energy usages, electricity and heat in our system. Also for transport, about 16% of it, and 6% of it, but it's still a large quantity, as you will see in the next slide, is used for petrochemicals or fertilizer production. No, you can come back to the first slide, please. Thank you. Yeah. So these petrochemicals, among these petrochemicals, we have consumer goods, packaging, and we will come back to it. And at the end of this linear system, we emit a lot of waste, and it's estimated that around 7,000 million metric tons of plastic waste have been landfilled from 1960 to 2020. So it's an accumulation of plastic waste in our system. So you can go to the next slide. And this linear and fossil-based system leads, obviously, to critical challenges. I will present briefly 3 of them, which are relevant to our projects. So climate change first. So this is the first critical challenge we have tried to tackle in our project, NoAW. So greenhouse gas emissions are generated by human activities. And these greenhouse gases takes different form. It could be CO2, it could be methane, it could be nitrous oxide, it could be CFC, but the global greenhouse gas effects leads to less heat that escapes into our space, which means that we estimate that the global temperature have risen by 1 degree Celsius in average since the pre-industrial time. So it means it's what we called, and it exists very nice article on it, what we call the great acceleration due to human activities since the industrial times. So you can go to the next slide. Second challenge that this linear and fossil-based system leads to is what we call plastic leakages. So in 2010, it was estimated that the global primary plastic production, means new plastics, is about 270 million tons per year. And among this global primary plastic production, about 12% of it ended as mismanaged coastal plastic waste, which means around 40 million tons per year. And it's an accumulation of it because it doesn't disappear in 1 year. And at the end of it, if we look at the oceans, we estimated in 2010 that about 3% of it finishes into the ocean. And like it is written on the right bubble, plastic breaks into micro and nanoparticles eventually, and at the end it generates both environmental and human health, and obviously also animal health concerns in our environment. So this is a big challenge we try, you will see, to tackle also in our projects modestly. You can go to the next slide. Third challenge I would like to emphasize, to present today to put our project into a global context, is what we call the resources exhaustion. So it's at the early stage of the value chain. On the right side, you can see what we call the reserves in mines. The gray lines represent what is still estimated to be in our mines for the different kinds of metals. So it's we estimate that we have more metals in our products, in our system, for most of these metals than in the mines themselves. So it's what we call urban mining. We should mine in our system now if we want to valorize these resources. And if I make a link to agricultural system, you have on the left side what we call the global phosphorus fertilizer map. You can see that phosphorus is applied as a fertilizer worldwide, in every field almost, where we can grow plants. But in contrast to this overall utilization of it, the production, commercial production of phosphorus coming from what we call the phosphate rock is unevenly distributed in the world. Is, for instance, mostly concentrated in certain countries, 5-6 countries in the world, mostly Morocco, and it leads to challenges in terms of resources. And there are various hypotheses and assumptions, but according to studies, we estimate that the commercial and affordable phosphorus reserves are expected to be depleted in 50 to 300 years. As you can see, the range is quite broad. It differs from the different studies, but still it's not a long time. So you can go to the next slide. So to tackle these three challenges, what do we want to do? What would we like to do in this project? We want to move from a linear fossil-based economy to a circular, sustainable bioeconomy. What is bioeconomy? Actually, the bioeconomy relies on the conversion of renewable biological resources into many kinds of things, into value-added products such as obviously food, feed, but also bio-based products and bioenergy. On the graphic on the left side, you can see that if you have minerals, nutrients, carbon, and sun, we have the chance to have plants that can grow and generate a lot of biomass. And this biomass represents a renewable raw material and feedstock. And thanks to the biorefinery approach that we will present also in our specific project, you can produce food, feed, chemicals, bioenergy, and materials. And what is also interesting, you can see it at the bottom of the graphic, is that the byproduct and waste can also be valorized with biorefinery novel processing. And obviously, we need to not forget to close the cycle. Otherwise, we lack minerals, nutrients, and carbon to have a continuous and circular bioeconomy sustainable system. So this is challenging. This is what is explained in the next slide, please. So to get a sustainable bioeconomy system, we need to take care of a few challenges. First one, most of our current bio-based materials and energy on Earth are entering in competition with food production. So this is a key issue we have to tackle. Another issue is that it's not because it is biosourced that it's necessarily biodegradable. So I take the example of PET. If you take a bottle of PET based on fossil energy, and if you take the same bottle of PET but biosourced made out of biomass, they have the same chemical composition, which means that they have the same challenges at the end of their life. Accumulation of plastic is not solved necessarily via biosourced products. Biopet in this case could have an interest in terms of climate change, but not in terms of plastic leakage, if I refer to the challenges we just evoked. So this is something to take into account, and you will see how we tackle this aspect in NoAW. Obviously, respecting the nutrient cycle, it seems easy on the paper, but it's the main global challenge maybe out of it as well. And another challenge, the fourth one, is that this field is still in early development and many projects are still at early stages, and they face also, like every new development, challenges in terms of competitiveness. You can go to the next slide. So now, can unavoidable agro-waste be a leverage point to boost the bioeconomy? So the answer is yes, unless we manage it well. So I don't need to come back to the challenges, but if it's well managed, you can see here that we have a lot of gigaton of dried matter per year that could be better valorized than they are today. For instance, if I took only the third example, the 3.6 gigaton of manure, which are produced per year worldwide, it's estimated that only 4% of it is currently valorized in a cascading way. So you will see that in our project, via fermentation processes, we will present innovative ways to valorize it while considering always the cycle, the nutrient cycle. So you can go to the next slide. I don't say more here. I just put into context. So to summarize, yes? To summarize, a sustainable bioeconomy relies on a cascading valorization approach, energy, material, and nutrients back to the soil. We will illustrate it in NoAW. Next slide, please. Indeed, NoAW ambitions reflects completely this strategy to preserve our planet by closing the loop based on agricultural residues. And like Natalie said in introduction, we aim to substitute non-renewable oil and noble food resources with agro-waste that will be converted into a portfolio of eco-efficient products. I don't tell more. Now I let the floor to my colleagues to present the next step of the NoAW story. Thank you very much.